I'm Pringle Franklin, and I am a hobbyist beekeeper, and I've been keeping bees for about 3 years. A lot of people, when they find out that I'm a hobbyist beekeeper, it sparks their interest, and they want to know, how can I become a beekeeper? How did you become a beekeeper? So there are a couple of things to know. It depends on where you live. Some states you actually have to register your hives with the state. Here in South Carolina, you don't have to register with any state government authority. Even in Charleston, where we live, you don't have to let the city know that you're keeping bees. You can just set up your hives. But it is very good advice to check with your neighbors and think about your neighbors before you bring a hive into your yard. Well, a lot of these bees are coming and going all day long, so you want to make sure that there's space around your beehive and that people are not going to be walking too close to the hive. I did check with my neighbors that live directly next to me before putting a beehive back there. Now, for bees to survive in the winter in a cluster, there have to be enough bees to make this a viable option for them to create enough heat. So in the winter, a beehive might have somewhere between 5,000, 7,000 bees minimum. In the spring, because there are food sources again, the queen will start laying eggs. The population increases rapidly. By the time we're looking at mid-June, a healthy beehive might have 50,000 bees. By July, it might have 70,000 bees. But they also swarm. As they grow, as they get big, they get crowded. Sometimes, very often in the spring, the queen bee will leave and she will take a third to half the hive with her. They're gone. They create a new colony somewhere, like inside a hollow tree. And then the old colony creates a new queen. She starts laying and building up their population again. So because most of the work in a beehive is done by the females, the hive is made up of about 90% females. So the workers are all sisters, and the queen, there's only one queen per hive. She's the mother of all the bees in there. And then about 10% of the bees in a hive are males. They're called drones. The drones have a pretty good life. They do not have to work. I always say to people, it's like they're sitting in there watching NFL with their feet kicked up, drinking mead or something. They're totally relaxed. Their one job is to go out and mate with a virgin queen. And in the fall, the sister bees will kick the drones out, and they pretty much starve to death because they can't support non-working bees during the winter when they're living off their stored resources. So my bees are able to fly around many days in the winter. Bees, when it is about 55 degrees, they go inside the hive and they don't come out. But if it's 45 degrees Fahrenheit or less, then they have to get into a cluster to stay warm, because really honeybees are subtropical creatures. Even though they successfully live in places like Canada, Montana, all these places that are actually very cold, Russia, they survive because they help one another. So they cluster, and it's sort of like a shape of a football, an American football, and they pull together and survive by body warmth. The queen is in the middle, and they rotate. So after several hours, the ones in the middle are toasty warm, and the ones on the edge are cold. So they'll trade positions. They just instinctively know how to do this. So then the ones that were cold and on the outside go inside, and the ones that are toasty warm take their turn going on the outside, and then everybody survives. So that's what they do in the winter. So once you enter into the world of bees, it can become such a fascination, and suddenly you find yourself noticing not only honeybees but insects everywhere. I'm so much more aware of the world of insects, and when I'm walking around outside now, if something is flying or something is crawling around on a flower or on a bush, I hone in. I am hyper aware of its presence. was not like that at all before. And I've begun to just glimpse into the world of insects, which are considered the bottom of the food chain, or one of the foundations of our food chain for life. There's so much diversity. There's so much beauty. Some of these insects are hilarious to look at. And I used to think of insects as, a little bit like pests. The gnats that get in your face, or the mosquitoes that bite you, or the flies that want to get on your food when you're trying to have a picnic. But I have a much deeper appreciation for insects and what they do for the planet and how we need to protect them. So I encourage you, when you go outside and you walk around, to be still and to observe what is going on around you in the insect world.